And we're on. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. I've got my good friend, Danny Thompson. Danny, at the start of this show, prior to recording, you had a throwback full court press logo. And you throw it up there for the people to see. There you go. There you go. Full court press. Oh man. Just old advertisers, old call letters, stations. It just shows how far you've come. Danny, tell us the outlets that you represent.
Ted, it's always a pleasure coming on the show. Check out Beyond the Buzzer, normally on 98.5 The Wire out here in Orlando, Florida. The home for everything local Pine Hills in the Orlando area. The show has actually kind of moved to more of the digital format because of everything going on with the COVID-19 virus. So we do, myself and Kyle Nash, do the show live on Facebook on the Beyond the Buzzer Facebook page on Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. We talk sports on that side of things. AroundTheAssociation.com is my personal NBA website, which I've been writing for going on 5 years now. I also cover NFL for our good friends in three-point conversion. Shouts out to my man, Controversy Raphael, Mr. Haynes, L.A. Broadus, Alex, Avi, Ab, Damian, the entire crew over there. So I write NFL for those guys. And, I occasionally, when Ted Hicks gives the bat signal, I always jump on, his podcast, or, I jump on Late Night Parents and the occasional drop, the ghostwriter type stuff. But,
that is true. So big shout out to everyone because happy Resurrection Sunday, happy Passover, happy Easter to everyone. Want to give a shout out to Sight and Sound Production, which produced the live play or live theater performance of Jesus, which was available on the TBN app, Trinity Broadcast Network app. Wanted to give a shout out to my friends there, and also one of our, I don't want to say one of our sponsors, but our good friends at Verizon sent a beautiful gift. Want to say thank you guys. Installed in less than 30 minutes. So, and that's the Google Nest home thermostat. Want to say thank you once again I will be writing about the Google Nest and a whole bunch of other things. Very busy week in the world going on. Danny, you talked about coronavirus, COVID-19. How are you, your family, and for the most part, your state?
State's one thing. At least the state of Florida is now quarantined. I think the last time we were on, I think the beaches were still open in Florida at some point in time. It's getting to be more and more apparent down here in Florida. I think when more people are getting tested, more people are being found for it. I think like with every other major city, there are issues with people not following, the protocol. Like, I went outside to go to the grocery store on Saturday, and the neighborhood down the street, there's about a group of like 30 or 40 people out there playing basketball.
Right.
And like it's the point now, in some places they're taking the hoops away so people can't play basketball.
You have to. They did that in New York. Danny, they took down the hoops to get them to stop.
And it's just like, I understand, the whole issue of being at home, but I can, speaking from personal experience, going through the corona or the corona protocol is something you don't want to go through. And I can speak from personal experience because I went through the protocol. A couple of weeks ago, I was having the symptoms. I felt terrible. I feel like I had the flu. I think Ted, we talked offline about this. Like, yes. I was sick and I didn't know what to do. I was having coughs, having chest pain. So I took the test. I was on the I'd say COVID protocol, where they stick everything in your nose. That procedure's real. It went in both nostrils. I had to wait 12 days, and the good news was, by the grace of God and everybody in between, there was a negative result that came out of it. But my experience about this is, you don't want to sit there for 12 days not knowing, in a lot of cases, if you have it or not, because you start to question, because you're, besides being home quarantine, you're wondering, did you get if you have loved ones like children or a spouse, did you get those people infected? And if you waiting 12 days, if you have it or don't have it, and you're exposed to them, you can possibly potentially expose yourself to them. Not every area has immediate testing where you get it back in 48 hours. A lot of times it is 7 to 10, in my case, 12 days. And that was a rough 12-day period because, like I said, for those who know me, I have a daughter. And I couldn't spend time with my daughter because I didn't want to get her potentially infected, or then that way she takes it home to her school and her mom and her brother, and I don't want to have that around. And you start questioning who you saw in the last 2 weeks. Did they catch it? Did you get it from them, or did you give it to somebody else? There's so many things that play in your mind. And the sad part is nowadays people are just really like, they're still having parties. They're still having cookouts. They're still, we saw it was Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott having a party in their house yesterday that was on Instagram and social media. It's the actions of some that will keep the country at bay for a longer time. So, if you don't have to go out the house, just stay at home. Like, I know we don't want to. And Ted, like I said, down here is 91 degrees in Florida.
Brutal.
And it was overcast. So it wasn't blazing hot outside. So you could have stood outside and, and stand and be able to bear it. Like I said, I went outside one time to go grab dinner because it's Easter Sunday, so I went to go grab dinner, but it was a beautiful day outside. If we're going to want to start spending the summertime outside, what's spending 3 to 4 weeks at home just following protocol for us to have the entire summer, and for those who can't go to work, for them to go back to work. So it's rough.
Yeah, it's rough, and now we're starting to delve into, well, from my aspect, it's like the 5th or 6th week that you possibly could have been home. And if you're in New York State, and now you start to question, because like you run into so many of these billion dollar companies that are totally furloughing 40,000 people, 45,000 people. When you hear Tesla is furloughing or laying off their sales and their research and development team or stuff like that, it's starting to get nervous out here.
Look at Disney. Disney laid off furloughed 40 to 45,000 employees.
Right.
And I mean, like, for example, look at the WWE. Ted, we watch professional wrestling.
Yes.
And they said they're projected, if they have to cancel all their arena dates the rest of the year with WrestleMania and the show that's in Saudi Arabia, that's a potential $200 to $300 million loss for the company. Well, what does that mean? It means the XFL had to go, like it did the other day.
Yeah.
Not because they had terrible ratings. No, the ratings were actually better than what they expected. They were ready for year number 2. We were ready for the second half of the XFL season. But guess what? When you said one person cutting all the checks, they're trying to minimize as many things as possible. And people are making fun, people are getting upset that they're going back to live shows on Monday night. Well, the WWE has a contract with NBC Universal and one with Fox, where in the contracts, it states that they only can have a certain number of taped shows per year. And Vince McMahon only used those taped shows at the end of the year so the wrestlers could be home with their families for the holidays. So guess what? If they don't have live shows, these networks are going to trigger the termination clause, which means, like you said, Ted, look at the WWE, $2 billion deal with Fox over 5 years?
Yes.
You're terminating $400 million a year in money. So what happens when you lose $400 million in money? That's just on the Fox side. People lose their jobs. And, it's just everybody's losing right now.
Everyone is losing. And it's a topic I'm going to broach with True Armor later this week on this podcast. But it's a question I'll pose to you. The question is, obviously we're dealing with a pandemic that no one was prepared for. I don't care who could have been in office. They wouldn't have been prepared for this. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you had the lack of federal leadership. So you had 50 governors doing their own thing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, they were bidding against each other for equipment, whether it's PPE gear or, and the like. But just to think about it, how hard is it going to be to turn around this country, get the economy going, get people back working with no vaccine in sight? I don't care how much, Danny, if we fast track it. This thing is going to be lingering at least for 12 months. So we could be stuck in the same position either once we reopen the country or come fall season.
I mean, and the thing is, even with people trying to create vaccines, I think to me it's just like it's trying to put a Band-Aid over a flesh wound. Because in clinical trials, you can't get a vaccine in 2 weeks. Like, you really have to test over, and most times, 12 to 15 months. So, like, if a vaccine is created tomorrow, it's looking like towards what, the 4th of July of next year, before we have enough evidence, enough, this X, Y, and Z and data to say, okay, this is the right fit. Right now, we're just trying to throw different medicines. They're throwing lupus medicine. They're throwing this medicine. They're throwing that medicine. It works for one person, but it doesn't work for somebody else.
Well, I just want to interject. You got a president that's saying hydroxychloroquine, which worked for this person, killed this other person, and then you got a state, either senator or a congresswoman, saying, "Hey, it saved a life," and we're glad. But if I just don't think hydroxychloroquine and a Z-Pack is the answer.
Like I said, it's basically trying to patchwork something that is a bigger problem. Ted's like, as a homeowner, you have a leaky faucet. So what do? You put a cloth around it just to try to soak it up.
Right.
But the next thing you know, like 3 hours later, you're looking like, what is that sound? And you see the towel's completely soaking wet, and the inside of your sink is still leaking. And you're like, what? I just tied this up. So what do? You take the tie off, and guess what? Now you got more water everywhere. It's like it's like you said, it saved one person, which is a beautiful thing, but it killed somebody else. So if this is baseball, it's 50%. Your vaccine's batting 500.
Right.
It's not even making the playoffs. It's 500. So it's like, yeah. So what, you're going to test it on 10 people and then unleash it to the entire country? What about the people who, what are the side effects of this medicine? And it's like, you don't know. It's like you're just throwing stuff to a wall. And could we been better prepared? Of course we could have been. Like, we had things in place with other administrations before this one that had a kind of an idea if this were to ever happen. Mm-hmm. We had time to know about things that happened.
Yes,
but staff. It was not. We cut the staff. We had people at the top of the country who chose to ignore the warning signs. When you get information, especially something like that, you're supposed to. Don't disregard it. Don't act like it doesn't exist or it's just a fad.
Right.
You got to pay attention to it. I mean, look at the Ebola virus. When it came out, it was dangerous. The Zika virus was dangerous, but what happened? We were on it early enough.
H1N1, just as deadly.
We were on it early. Like, remember it. I remember the Zika virus because of the Olympics.
Yes.
How the athletes were like, get bit by a mosquito in a whole other country? Nah. But what happened? We got it taken care of, and right. To the point where, it was mitigated early. Like, they knew about it. Yeah, it did, unfortunately, take the lives of some, but it didn't take the lives of what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. I think, every day you hear 8, 9, 10,000, 13, 14, 1,500 people are dying every single day. And it's only going to get worse because we don't know what to do. So I'm just hoping that there's a resolution to all this. And I know I don't, but also at the same time, I don't want to rush a solution, because if we rush the solution and try to get back to normal, we're going to be potentially putting ourselves in a worse state than what it was. You know, you saw what happened in China. China thought they were ready to go back, and guess what? They still can't go back.
Right.
So,
right. Hi, this is Ted Hicks with Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. Speaking with Danny Thompson. Danny, will go to a few. Thank you for elaborating on COVID-19, coronavirus. Glad to see that you are healthy. You and your family are healthy, and your state and your governor, DeSantis, need to get it together. But another discussion for another day. Tell me about the NBA and horse. I did not watch it.
Well, I mean, we were talking about this in the group chat earlier when it was going on the idea, and then they showed it. It looked like the film was shot on an iPhone 3. It's a good idea. I guess we're all struggling for sports, but the camera work was just, they didn't use, they could have used Zoom. They could have used any other service provider, but it looked like it was all shot on an iPhone camera, like the older iPhones, or like, the old school flip phones from, the Sprint days, the Sprint flip phones, with the small antennas.
Yes.
It was very, very bad production. Like, it was bad. I mean,
and it was airing on ESPN?
It was on ESPN.
Oh.
This was the second ESPN terrible version of a broadcast. I think we talked about this in the pod before when they did Cal Ripken and they didn't update the video.
Yes.
It was about as bad as that, because at one point Chauncey Billups was shooting and it started buffering during his shot. And I'm like, they didn't think this is out. They didn't think this very well. Like,
no.
At least with the 2K tournament, it was clear. You saw the players pretty good. This ain't it, Chief. Not at all.
So this was just phase one. When's the next one? Next week or Tuesday?
Thursday is the semifinals. I think the championship is on Thursday.
Okay.
I mean, ESPN spent Sunday night showing it, and they replayed it. Like, they literally spent 4 hours of live television, 7 to 8, and then 9 to 10, showing horse.
Did they clean up the video on the replays?
No, it was the same video, Ted. I mean, you saw the guys buffering. Trae Young is in his backyard. You can see, like, the little grass, and Zach LaVine. It was kind of funny because Zach LaVine against Paul Pierce. At the end, Zach LaVine decided to do a 2-hand dunk knowing good well Paul Pierce can't get off the ground at his age. I mean, Tamika Catchings was complaining about there's wind in her backyard. And, you get to see these professional athletes' backyard. Allie Quigley has the old school hoop with the Ted, you remember when you had the goals in the stand, you had to put the sand inside the big container. She had one of those hoops in her backyard. So it's like,
okay.
It's like, okay. Mike Conley was the only person to do his indoors because he has an indoor gym.
Shouldn't that be like the norm?
You'd be surprised how many NBA players don't have courts in their home.
But then again, Mike Conley signed that 5-year, $150 million contract.
But remember, he was just traded to Utah in the offseason.
That's true.
But what I'm saying is, I think this house was still in Memphis. But Ted, you would be surprised. I remember Giannis was talking about this earlier in the week, that he hasn't worked out and played basketball since. And people are like, what do you mean? He doesn't own a basketball hoop at his house.
He doesn't?
No. It's weird. It sounds weird, but a lot of guys do not have basketball hoops in their house, or in their conference.
So he's unable to go to the Y, or
you guys think what's open?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They can't use. A lot of times guys go to the team facilities because you have the trainers there. You have to work. You do everything at the facility. When home, it's like for example, before we had a lot of us had to work at home.
Mm-hmm.
Who wanted to bring work home?
I'm telling you, it's so funny because. So Danny, and I'm sure you have too, where I've had the option to work from home for like the last 20 years. Majority of the time, 80% of the time, I'm in the office. I would use the work from home days on maybe a Monday or a Friday, Friday. But it's funny because now with the majority of Americans working from home, they're like fish out of water. I actually live with one who's like a fish out of water because she's like, oh, I'm trying to update the programming and I'm going to have to go in the office. And I'm like, I don't think that's a solution. I think, there's certain things where you would understand it coming from your background. You say, oh, you need a VPN so that you can connect in, so that you can mimic that you're physically at work. It just goes to show you where we are as working professionals. But it's just strange that these guys and gals, maybe for the gals, that the female athletes, that I would think you would have an indoor facility.
But it's like, the thing is, do you really want to bring work home? You're at the.
If it's your craft, if it's part of your craft and you're mastering it.
Well, that's understandable, but it's just like, Ted, you're a master of your craft, at what you do, when you're not on this airwave. Do you really want to, if you had a choice, would you really want to bring it home after you've been there?
I wouldn't.
And I think a lot of guys, when they get home, they don't want to touch a basketball.
Right.
And the thing with fans is that a lot of fans have this misunderstanding that these guys don't work. Oh, while they're home playing Call of Duty, they should be able to work on the jump shot. You don't think these players and athletes do? These guys and girls spend, 11, 12, 13 hours a day.
The human beings.
And it's not just basketball, football players, baseball players. Guys and girls are in their element way more than people ever think. Because you only see them for 3 hours or 2 or 3 hours a night, or maybe 4 in some cases, a couple of nights a week, that's all they do. There's practices. They're there on their days off. They're working with trainers. They're working with nutritionists. You go and work out all day. Do you want to go home and work out after working out at work all day? No. I come home. I don't want to open my laptop up. I don't. I'm like, the last thing I want to do is think about my day job when I get home. Home is home. That's the same way people have the tendency of having TVs in the bedroom. The bedroom is for sleeping.
So, personal question. Do you have a TV in your bedroom?
My TV got hit by lightning in the bedroom, so technically no, but in most cases I would have a TV in the bedroom.
I do not have a TV in the bedroom. There's certain times I'll have like my laptop or something, but TV in the bedroom, no go. Like you said, bedroom, sleeping, and doing a few other things.
Yeah, folding clothes. Fixing bills, calculating finances, those things. I get it.
Quickly switch gears to, I don't know if you've heard about this. I got a phone call about it yesterday. I couldn't validate it. So I'm going to throw this out to you. Someone told me MLB is considering, there's where they have spring training in Arizona, where they're going to have all the teams in multiple stadiums in that area, where there'll be no fans, there'll be no umpires, everything is computerized, balls and strikes, and no one's going to be in the dugout. All the players will be in the stands, physically distancing, socially distancing, 6 feet away from each other. I thought my leg was getting pulled. Did you hear about any of this?
I know I didn't hear about the 6 feet in the dugout rule. I did hear, but I think what my interpreted was they're supposed to be Arizona and Florida.
Okay.
They were going to scrap the divisions the way they currently are set and re-divisionize them.
Oh, okay.
And you had 15 teams in Florida, 15 teams in Arizona because of the number of spring training facilities they have. I think it was supposed to be 7-inning games.
Right.
Teams will probably play in some cases twice a day.
Ugh. Split squads we're talking about?
I mean, you would probably at this point you have to expand the rosters probably.
Gotcha.
I mean, because here's the thing: if you're going to run a season, more likely there's no minor leagues this year anyway. So I think you expand the right. If you're going to do 7 games and try to do 2 a day, I mean, you probably expand the rosters to what, 40, 45? That way you have enough pitchers. Like you say, you do split squad games if needed.
Question: which professional sports league do you think is going to be the first one to be back in business, Danny?
I think it's baseball.
I would agree with you. Baseball.
I think the NBA. Now there was a rumor the NBA is considering. I think Adam Silver has basically said on May 1st, we won't make any decision on the NBA until May 1st.
Okay.
They're proposing a 25-day warm-up period, 11 days where the players can get themselves ready, and a 14-day training camp.
Where are they physically going to hold games?
I think they're going to probably play. It would be a baseball type of idea.
Okay.
East go in one location, West go in the other location. Now, or if they decide to clip the end of the regular season and go straight to the playoffs, you send everybody to Vegas.
Okay.
And then you quarantine them, and you run games the same way you do Summer League. You'll have them over at Cox Pavilion. You'll have them at the Thomas and Mack Center. You have basically playoff games running every, 30 minutes in between each game. Like you said, with social distancing, it won't be that hard to do things because, it's only, 15 players per team. So at the most, you'll be spacing out 10 guys and coaches, 10 players and coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think like you said, you cut the media out of it, only have essential media people and NBA people there.
Mm-hmm.
You keep everybody in 2 or 3 quarantine Vegas hotels. They are not allowed to go anywhere. The entire staff is quarantined. These people will be living in the hotels with the players for, I'd say, and honestly, I cut the time of the playoffs, especially the opening round, because it's the best of 3. When they lose, get them out of Vegas as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would run best of 5 for the semifinals, conference finals, and NBA finals. You can finish the playoffs in less than 30 days.
Mm.
So basically, if you start June 1st, for example, you could be done by July 1st, if that's the idea. And guess what? You don't really miss a beat when it comes to next season. You might lose Summer League, but you can be on time to start in October as an idea. But as far as I think the sports going back, I think baseball goes back. Because baseball is the only sport that doesn't really have much contact. If you're taking the umpires out of the game, then really the only thing you're having is pitchers and catchers. They've been wanting to try the digital umpires anyway.
I heard something crazy that the manager won't be able to go to the mound. So no mound visits. As I said, no one in the dugout. Players are spread out.
So how do pitching changes happen? You get a buzzer?
Hey, then we just wanted to get away from buzzers and the Astros and all of that other stuff.
I mean, what? I mean, the manager press a bell, ding, all right, we have a pitching change.
It's just, it's like you microwaving popcorn.
Like, how do you know when to steal? How does the third base coach and do signals? I mean, did we go through this with the Astros? I mean, you don't want to steal signals. I mean, you know what though? Listen, I think baseball has much more an easier time to do it than, like I say, football or basketball. I think baseball will be back in, and I think it'll be the 4th. I think it's the 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
I think we get baseball. I think baseball will market the 4th of July and go from there. I think we see 100. I think we see 100 games. Like you said, between Florida and Arizona, you split squad them, and the only time they leave the area is when we do the World Series. And the World Series will be at a neutral site. You don't put it in neither team's home city. Put it at a neutral site, best of 3. Call it a day.
Okay. All right. Hey, so I'm just going to put this towards you because you called me this week and we were talking about this in depth. How did ESPN and in quotations Disney kind of, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. How did ESPN pop Dana White's collar and get him and shut him down for UFC 249 during the pandemic?
It's because this man tried. First off, No one believed him when he said he got a private island for these fights. Okay, he had everything in order. I think the word was he was going to do the fight on an Indian reservation in California, and so they had an agreement with the reservation and everything else in between to do the fights there. They got sanctions and everything there. The governor of California was like, "There's no way this should happen." So when they were going to shut down California, Dana White started to build what he called Fight Island. No one knows where Fight Island is located, but Dana White and the people involved in the UFC. If ESPN and Disney did not step into this, we were going to have a fight on Saturday. They had a card already ready to go. Now, mind you, the main draw was Khabib Nurmagomedov, who pulled out because he can't leave Russia, his home country, because he's stuck because of quarantine. And then the co-main event, Rose, she's known as Rose Thug. I can't pronounce her last name. Mm-hmm. She pulled out of the co-main event because she lost 2 family members to COVID-19. And they still were going to have this card anyway. The fighters were good to go. Everybody's ready to go. Fight Island's being built. And I think Disney was like, we want no part of this. Like, do you understand if one of the fighters
that would have just been on that event and people would have been like, the media would have been burning ESPN and the parent company Disney on this.
And Zuffa, and can you imagine, Ted, what happens if somebody who was working for the UFC contracted COVID? And the thing was, I was in a group chat with some friends, and one of my friends was saying, it was terrible what they're doing. I'm like, it's terrible that they're calling it off. They had everything under control. I said, you can't. I'm like, does he own the entire island?
Right.
Like, you're flying in. Who's running the airport? Dana White's not running the airport. He's not running the hotel. He's like, well, you can go get like Airbnbs. Who's going to clean the B&Bs? There are people on the island. Like, no matter where you go, you can't test everybody for the island.
This is starting to feel like Firefest and Ja Rule.
Yeah, no. The thing was, the difference between Firefest and this was actually going to happen. Like when you look at Dana White when he was interviewing, you can see that he was completely hurt. Like, this is not going on. Like, he was completely confused. Like, when I believe Dana White when he said he had contracts and fighters ready to go, I full-fledged believe we were going to have a fight next weekend. And ESPN was like, if somebody were, can you imagine the PR hits that ESPN Disney would have taken?
Yes.
If not even if just a regular employee contracted COVID-19.
Of course.
What people don't realize is that somebody in the WWE, not one of the wrestlers,
an employee
caught COVID-19 on March 26th.
Yeah.
And so now, mind you, now this was after everything was taped for WrestleMania. But what my point is, Raw is supposed to happen tomorrow night because they're under contract.
And it's live or taped?
I think it's live tomorrow night. Now, my question is, who did Vince McMahon? What conversation did Vince McMahon and Ron DeSantis have to get this to go if the entire state is shut down?
Right.
Or it could be taped. They could have just taped it earlier in the day or midday, and that way it'd be played later. That's about as close as you can get to live at some point because it's, or are you just going to have an hour's worth of wrestling and then fill it with programming? I don't know what you're going to do, but ESPN and Disney saved Dana White for himself because I think if somebody in the UFC would have caught the coronavirus or COVID-19, the UFC would have been damaged for.
Listen,
the money, it would have been damaged.
For what it's worth, I'm not laughing about anyone catching COVID-19, coronavirus. I'm laughing the fact that you said the ESPN saved Dana White from himself.
He did. I mean, Ted, can you imagine if you are, UFC or Zuffa and everybody who controls UFC, and the PR hit, it would have taken.
Yes.
I mean.
But Danny, I got to interject and say, I'm sure Dana White is not doing this on his own. I'm sure the investors, the board that he has to answer to, were drilling him to do it.
Well, Ted, you have to understand, we're watching horse on ESPN right now. If Dana White, let's say that, Ted, if Dana White were to cut the card down to let's say $29.99.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on ESPN Plus for the main card. Do you know how much money the UFC would have made next
Totally.
Saturday night?
You got it. I mean, and I
Live sports.
live sports. You got to look at it the way Sam Walton and the Walton family look at things. You gotta go with the Walmart price value. You make it low, you make it affordable, and everyone's going to come.
Especially when you don't have nothing on television.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many subscribers ESPN Plus would have had?
Yeah.
And how much money? Oh, I think Dana White, honestly, Ted, this would have been the biggest draw as far as millions of people to order a fight in UFC history. And it's not even your main fight. Your main fighter is not even the card. Why? Because there's nothing on television, no live sports. I think ESPN would have had live ratings for the UFC at an all-time high.
Yes.
I think they would have had. I'll be honest with you, Ted.
Buys.
I think they would have hit 10 million buys on Saturday.
Wow.
Ted, $29.99 for live sports.
And people are starving for it.
And Ted, on top of that, you're going to get ESPN month for free anyway. So you can catch all the old sports you need, but you get to have, like I said, if you're going to throw one UFC fight on UFC Island, you know they're going to continue with every other UFC.
Yes.
And like I said, we're starving as Americans in the culture for sports. And you could imagine all the buys in Canada. You could imagine all the buys anywhere for this fight.
Yes.
And like you said, it's not even your main card. It's not even your main guns. It's not Khabib. It's not Aaron. It's not John Jones. It's not Stipe. It's not Daniel Cormier. It's it's nothing wrong with Justin Gaethje or Tony Ferguson, but it's not your A-list mega draws, and you're going to get 10 million buys. So ESPN, and like I said, and can you imagine the PR hit ESPN and Disney would have taken for broadcasting fights with wrestlers or fighters that are in or could potentially catch COVID-19? And I think shareholders are looking at this. Can you imagine their stock prices?
Right.
So yeah, you're right. So ESPN saved Dana White and themselves for potential backlash. Ted, can you imagine if somebody caught the corona and caught a lawsuit?
Yes. Yes. Just specifically on his negligence.
Because
of a pandemic.
And especially when he's been told, don't do it.
Right.
Nobody was giving him a license. No state was letting him do this.
Wow.
That's why he had to get an island.
Hey, so are you hyped about Roger Goodell hosting the 2020 virtual NFL draft from his basement?
I am waiting for the first team to sit here and say, my hotspot's not working. That's what I'm waiting for. I have no idea how this is going to work, but I'll say this. The NFL will have a good chance to see how this works because the WNBA draft is this week. So they're doing a video draft, a live, a virtual draft this week. So you're looking for live sports. The WNBA is holding their draft. This should be the most watched event.
Yeah.
What are we watching? We'll be watching old Orioles and Red Sox games from 1975, or we watch the WNBA draft.
Painful.
I mean, I'll be tuned in. Trust me.
This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. Danny, question I have written down here is Drew Brees to NBC Sports. The second part of the question for you is, why can't ESPN seem to find the talent for that coveted Monday Night Football analyst position?
Because Monday Night Football is not what it used to be. Monday Night Football changed when it went from over-the-air television to cable. Yeah. When you leave, there's nothing wrong with ESPN, but when you're leaving ABC, which is a big four network, and you go back down to cable, the casual fan, who's flipping through channels who doesn't have cable can't watch Monday Night Football. And I'll be honest with you, the product of Monday Night Football, ever since John Gruden's left, has gone down, down, and down. And it's nothing against the people that have done it, but it's just not. It's not the grade A sexy primetime show as it used to be. To be honest with you, Ted, the main thing is Sunday Night Football. NBC has turned Sunday Night Football from a cable perspective. That remember when Sunday Night Football first started, what channel was it on?
TNT.
Good old TNT with the
TNT.
NFL 2K graphics.
Yep.
So you look at it went from a cable to mainstream. ESPN, Monday Football went backwards. So now the coveted job is the chair on Sunday Night Football. It is the chair because, you guys said, people watch NFL throughout the day, but the primetime network game, NBC has way better Sunday night games than ESPN has Monday night games.
True.
And that's before. And I'm not even counting the 5 weeks of flex scheme. You look at the games before the flex schedule. Teams would rather have that game on Sunday night than Monday night. More prestige. And also they gave Drew Brees something else in that deal. They gave Drew Brees the lead color commentary for Notre Dame football.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So he's going to be doing color commentary for Notre Dame football on top of his Sunday night football work.
Wow.
That's enough to entice me. $8 million, and also $8 million a year.
Yeah.
Which was less than ESPN's. So.
But it's for me. So you have football. You have players choosing NBC or CBS over ESPN. NBA players, you have them choosing TNT over ESPN. Is there a stigmatism about ESPN, or is it kind of like, hey, if I go to ESPN, I'm going to have to go through the car wash, meaning I'm going to have to show up on Get Up on Tuesdays, and I'm going to have to show up for a segment of whether it's First Take or with Dan Le Batard and Poppy. It just seems like with these other sports networks is like, oh, hey, here's your property that you're going to be a part of, and that's that. Maybe you'll do some radio interviews.
I think, to be honest with you, it's like you look at, like, Turner doesn't have a number one team for NBA. They have different people shuffling in and out, even with their play-by-play guys. NBC, it was ESPN and Fox, ESPN and ABC. They have a number one play. They have a number one team. Breen, Van Gundy, and Mark Jackson, they're not being interchanged anywhere unless Mark Jackson or Van Gundy gets another job in the NBA coaching. So you're never going to be on that number one team. That number one team's not going anywhere. On Turner's case, with Kevin Harlan, they have different people working with Kevin Harlan. And to be honest with you, you see the development of players on Turner. Like, the majority of the people that run Turner on TV for Turner are former players.
Right.
You have the one person who does studio work, your Ernie Johnsons.
Right.
You have, like I said, your experienced play-by-play guys, but all your color commentators or the people in the studios, they are former players. And, you got to think this is also the same company at Turner that does players only, where there is no quote-unquote lead person. It's all athletes. And I'll be honest with you, you look at the athletes on Turner compared to ESPN, night and day. It's complete night and day. How immense they are. Chauncey Billups is the only exception to the rule because I think Chauncey's really good at ESPN. But for every Chauncey Billups, Chris Webber does color commentary for the games. I think of the late games throughout the week on TNT.
He gets killed. He gets killed on social media whenever he's doing a late game.
Well, Ted, here's the thing. He is a color commentator on an NBA game once a week. How many former players do you see jumping on different broadcasts, even with the double headers? I forgot who the second team ESPN has is, but you don't really see former players moving up into that spot. Chris Webber can't be worse than Booger on the Booger Mobile, so it's not that bad.
Hey, we're about to wrap up. There's a lot of talk within on social media. How long do you think, Danny, before Ronda Rousey appears on Smackdown?
If the pandemic ends tomorrow, I'd say the Royal Rumble. I'd say Survivor Series. I think Survivor Series would be a way to. I think in her interview with Steve-O, she pretty much alienated everybody in WWE.
Right.
If you read social media, who stood up for her? Shayna Baszler.
Mm-hmm.
You already have Sasha and Bailey on SmackDown still being best of friends, but you kind of feel like heel turn's coming. I think potentially kind of hold off on the heel turn completely instead of splitting those two up. Charlotte's on NXT. We have the other two girls from NXT down there already. Jesselyn Duke and Sharpina. They're both down NXT. I could see them trying to take out Charlotte Flair. And then Charlotte going to get back up. And then I can see, with Shayna being on Raw, she's going to take care of Becky. And then next thing you know, the way they cross-promote these shows nowadays, and the longer they stay in Orlando, the easier it is to cross-brand Charlotte. And they say Charlotte's going to be on all three shows anyway. Well, Ted, if you're filming everything in Orlando,
that's true.
It's not much of a difference. It only becomes a difference is when you go back outside of Florida, when they start going back on the road. She's got to be in Orlando on Wednesday for NXT, but then she's got Raw on Monday in X City and SmackDown on Friday in another city. That's when it becomes expensive, too much. So I think Ronda will show up at Survivor Series to make the Survivor Series traditional match, which is my dream match, which I think is the best way for Ronda to go out. I don't think she wants to do this full time. I think the second she really wants to start a family, her and Travis, and I honestly think that this is a work. But I think we won't see Ronda back in the main event picture. I think she turns into John Cena. She turns into The Rock. She shows up occasionally.
So, Danny, you mentioned in pre-pro about you having a Roku. What music channels are you currently streaming on your Roku?
Oh man, Spotify, because I Spotify my phone. To me, Spotify is the best streaming music app other than Tidal. I think Tidal and Spotify are 1-2. Tidal's gotten so much better over the years since the very beginning.
Remember all the Tidal jokes we used to make on BSS?
Listen, you know what though? Because Tidal was only like all Jay-Z and Rihanna. But now, since they're now catching up with all the different artists, they have very good documentaries on artists, especially Tidal artists. They have concerts and stuff on there. So Spotify is my favorite only because they have modified playlists. I think the 6 daily playlists are the best things you possibly can have because it goes through everything you listen to, and they create you 6 different playlists every single day. So it's not the same playlist every single day. It's not the same artist. It's the same type of music, but they take what you listen to. And for them to be that smart to know if I'm having a ratchet moment, I have a ratchet playlist. But if I want to go through and cleanse my soul, I got a whole 20 plus songs of gospel music on list number 5 that I can go to. So gotcha. I love it.
Got you. Hey, any Vivo, any radio.com, any Sirius XM? I mean, it's free for the next until May 15th.
I didn't know about Sirius being free for May 15th. I mean, there's some good programming there. For me, like I said, because of Spotify, I can choose the music. I prefer that than listening to radio. As far as music goes, I mean, if it's content wise, I mean, there's always good sports radio. There's always good talk radio on XM. But for me, if it's music, I'd rather have my pick and choose. Or just give me Spotify and give me Tidal, and I'm good all day.
Final question I have for you. And I posed this question to you in a text message, I would say like last 48 hours ago. I was really hyped up when I texted you. I said, hey, Rich Eisen, who lost his TV home and he lost his radio home. He lost his deal with Fox, and AT&T shut down the audience network. So he lost 2 different homes. And the question I had for you was, A, if you had a multi-hour radio show, let's say you had a 3-hour radio show, and you had the chance to do a TV simulcast, would you, and let me get this right, would you keep your 3-hour radio show with the 2-hour TV simulcast, or would you push everything to 2 hours radio TV? Or the third option, 3-hour radio show, 2-hour simulcast, and you just do one of the hours is just for your radio audience only. Which option do you see you would do with how you.
I think I know we first had the conversation. I said the 2 hour both ways, but now I think about it. I kind of like the 2 on air, 1 off air in the 3 hour format. I think with the 1 hour off air, you can build an audience and you can be able to test things out that you wouldn't on the TV side of things. So I kind of like the 2-in-1 idea, and I'd spend the 1 hour on the radio side, not with as many interviews, with callers on top of callers is one thing because I don't want to deal with live callers on national television.
Right.
So I write callers and just the ability to have just throw stuff off the wall just to see what sticks. Something, if something's old on television, you can find a way to to do it on the radio side to then translate to television. So I think 2-in-1 to me is a better idea.
Gotcha. Danny, this was a thorough discussion this week. We went a little bit longer than expected.
Don't we always?
Don't we always? Tell us the best ways to find you, find your work. And I know you have a bunch of announcements that you can't mention as of yet. It's good being on your inner circle, but anything that you can mention, now's your time.
Follow me on Twitter at Danny, DANNY, number 3 Thompson on Twitter. Beyond the Buzzer, which is now on Facebook on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Myself and Kyle Nash.
Okay.
We're doing the Facebook show. We want people to check in with us on the weekly side of things. We'll be back on 98.5 The Wire after after the pandemic is back in a regular state. We'll be back on it. That's our radio home. You can check out my NFL work and my compilation work over at 3pointconversion.com. And normally I do write for aroundtheassociation.com, but of course with the NBA being down, I don't write as much NBA. And the NBA podcast will be back sometime in June. And there's some things that, are cooking in the crock pot right now, but, a crock pot food, you just can't rush crock pot food. It has to, put all the seasonings in it before you take it out the pot and start eating it.
That is true. And hey, this is Ted Hicks. This is Late Night Parents. Thank you once again.